presented by Dano's Seasoning. Yum yum, get you some.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Sunbelt Syndicate. I am Dominick TJ. We also have TJ Corman, the other co-host for this evening and every evening, really. We are part of the Dogs Media Network, coming to you by College Football Dogs. We are sponsored, as you can see below, by Dano's Seasoning. Use the promo code below to get a little bit off your purchase from their website. That promo code is Doggos. Speaking of food and some seasoning, TJ, tell the fine people what you just made for dinner tonight before we got on air.
Oh, yeah, man. Speaking of Dano's, I did use some Dano's Chipotle on my, I made the Philly cheesesteak pasta. Go check it out if you're on my social media network. Go, it's on my story. Really easy recipe. DM me if you want the recipe, but delicious. Absolutely to die for. My wife, my niece, she's living with us now, and she loved it. It was delicious. And I made some fried cabbage and onions, but that's some country food that you may or may not know about that.
I'm good with the onions. I don't know about the cabbage, but if it was mixed together.
So do you eat egg rolls?
Oh, I love egg rolls.
There's cabbage in egg rolls.
Okay. Yeah. So I would eat it.
Yeah, absolutely you'd eat it. And also, it's not the way I season it.
Yeah.
And because you got to put a little sugar on it, right, to tenderize the cabbage, get it soft. A little Worcestershire sauce, onions. Most times you use some bacon fat. I use some beef fat. For some flavors, a little onion powder, garlic, salt, pepper. Like I said, I'm telling you, man, fried cabbage is basically you're just sauteing vegetables. But it's cabbage. And I'm telling you, it is absolutely delicious. You need to try it. If you want the recipe, I got you. But it's super simple to do. Okay. And get your cast iron skillet. That changes the game.
Right. And do you wash it? There's that big argument. Do you wash it?
No. So I got savvy and I went and bought me some cast iron soap. So
gotcha.
Yeah, I got cast iron soap and I also got cast iron oil to lubricate it after. So when I put it away for storage, I don't worry about it rusting out on me. So
right. Makes sense. Yeah, I lived with a guy once who just never washed it. I don't think he even rinsed it out. I was like, oh,
that's supposed to do that. That's not how this works.
Yeah, he spoke about it being flavorful for the next run. I'm like, well,
people like that. I don't really eat a lot of their cooking. Those are the kind of people who don't clean their grill grates. Just leave it flavor for the next time. I don't like that idea.
Yeah, I have a squeaky clean grill, probably because I don't grill nearly as much as you, but overall, I try and also keep it clean.
Yeah, got to.
Yeah, I don't like to put a lot of work in before I use it the next time, right? So, general.
Exactly. And if I'm already cooking and working, I might as well take the next 10 minutes to clean it after, so I don't have to do it before next time. So It just makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. No doubt about it. So we definitely, after hearing all that, we definitely have to get your little tailgate special together at some point where we got all kinds of camera angles and we're just showing you in your element, showing us how all the food is prepped properly. And then, you can show me with my important part, which would be just enjoying it afterward.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, man. Well, with all that being said, now I'm still somehow hungry, even though I've already eaten. But we will jump into TJ's expertise here as we show you the first clip of the night in a game between James Madison and Marshall. This one, obviously, the one from Thursday last week, which TJ was a lot lower scoring, at least through the first half, certainly, than I certainly expected. And then we can see some of why that is here with a defensive stand as Marshall gets the safety, and we'll let you roll through this one for us.
Yeah, both the lines played great. You got a situation here. I played in a shotgun offense in college, right? And the gripe that you always end up having if your offensive line isn't top notch, and JMU has a great offensive line, but also it's a rundown, right? You absolutely 100% know that you're backed up against your goal line. The defense knows 9 out of 10 times you're not going to throw that ball. So lining up in the shotgun does your running back a disservice. He doesn't get a chance to get ahead of steam to run downhill. So my rule of thumb is if I'm backed up against my goal line, I'm always going to put my quarterback under center, give my running back a chance to get downhill to run. And at worst case, even if there's contact at the line of scrimmage, he falls forward. In this case, there was penetration. Marshall, did a number against JMU, who, again, JMU really has a great offensive line. But, the one up is if Marshall knows that you're going to run the football, and it goes for any team, if I know what you're going to do, then that's half the battle, right?
Yeah.
And this was just a classic case of wrong place, wrong time for JMU.
Yeah. One thing I just noticed, because I told you I didn't really notice anything real specific about this play, right? I mean, it's like you said, it's just getting beat up front for the simplistic aspect of it. But 44 actually picks up the block on 2 here pretty well, and 2 doesn't even notice that he could probably go untouched to the backfield even faster. But I don't know if you just looked at that, but I mean, obviously you got to take care of your guy, and that's what he's doing. But it's just kind of funny that maybe even gotten him to him faster in the backfield had he just pulled off that block there. I don't know, just something I noticed there in the last second.
Yeah, he's 2 was playing his cues, right? You see a pulling tight end coming your way. Obviously, it's a rundown. And 2 was basically doing his job. He's going to blow that play up, and that's exactly what he did. He blew the play up. I mean, there's 2 kinds of players, right? There's one that's going to go for the glory, and that's going to try to get that sack or that tackle in the backfield. The problem with that, however, is if you got yourself a good running back, he slips that tackle, then there's no contain outside. So play your cues, play assignment football, which is what 2 did. He blew it up, let his other teammates make the play. And sometimes that's the best play, is not making the actual play. So there's something to be said for doing your job. Again, there's going to be some times in some football games where you go rogue and you call your own number. But in a situation like this, 2 did exactly what it was supposed to do, take on that block, and really blew the play up before it got started. So he did his job. Because like I said, if he goes in there and he tries to make that tackle and he misses and that running back bounces it outside, you're talking about a long run. So, yeah, and a lot of pissed off people in green, that's for sure.
Yeah. And the reason to play sound assignment football is because you played the triple options at Wofford and Georgia Southern multiple times throughout your career.
Absolutely.
Not that you were defense, but I'm sure you heard them getting talked to about what they had to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this next play comes from a game that I was lucky enough to go and travel to. Well, lucky enough.
I was going to say, define lucky.
In a sense of the word, okay? How about before the game and mostly during the game, it was a good time. The ending for us App State people, obviously not so fun. This situation has App State up by 1 point late in the game, 4th and 10, minute 8 seconds left. And TJ, I know there's nothing real fancy about this play, but anything you want to tell us as we run through this one as I hit play here for us?
Yeah, you're gonna see your slot in the bottom of your screen. He's gonna come in motion. They're running a deep over right to the right. What happens? The quarterback gets pressure, but he gets pressure to his strong side. And when you get a quarterback who's right-handed rolling right, if you don't contain that pocket, you got yourself a disaster, which is exactly what happened. You and I talked before we went on air. Obviously, ODU didn't draw up for there to be 4 players in one spot. Right? 9 times out of 10, this play won't happen. This isn't the play that gets you beat, right? And I can live with them making this play because, generally speaking, it's a lucky play. There's way too many people in that general vicinity for that ball to even be completed. So 9 times out of 10, that's probably not going to happen. It's just right place, right time for this guy and really for their whole team. It's a great call, and had he not gotten pressure, the over route probably he would have hit it a little bit earlier because he got behind the slot guy, got behind our linebacker, the downside linebacker here. He got across his backside pretty quickly, and that hole opened up. You see where the linebackers are splitting. If he didn't get pressure, he would have been able to hit him in that window.
Gotcha.
So the reality of it is it's a lucky play. And it's not the play that won them this game. However, if you want to argue that it sealed the deal, yeah, sure it did. But there were so many mistakes that were made by App State early on that this play at the end of the day, you file it away as something that should have never even been a play to begin with.
Right.
We crapped the bed so much, and there's a lot that I could say about this game, and the same thing that I've been saying in the past about the way we've coached and the way we've played, and how predictable we've been, and how predictable we're going to continue to be if we keep this style of play up. So anyway, I don't want to harp too long on it, but
you'll get your chance. You'll get your chance.
Yeah, it's but going back to the play, I mean, they great rollout. You get a right-handed quarterback rolling to a strong side. Normally, good things are going to happen.
Yeah, very true. I was impressed by him. I know that didn't have a controversy. I shouldn't say that, but they had a question of, neither quarterback has stood head and shoulders above the other kind of coming into that game.
Yeah.
Wilson did finish the previous game pretty well, and that's, I think, why he was the starter for the app game. But, I think they might have been, concerned about what the possibility was of that quarterback position. But, I mean, he impressed me. I mean, he didn't blow the roof off the place either, but impressive enough to make smart decisions.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So, last play that we'll go over here from the Georgia State-Louisiana game, and we'll talk about this game here soon as well. But this one has got a formation that TJ said he is very familiar with. So from here, I'll let TJ take it away.
Yeah, it's a diamond formation, and what you're doing here, if you're the quarterback, you're playing a numbers game, right? I know I've got 4 outside. If I look up and I see I got 4 on 3, I'm throwing it, especially on 3rd and 2. Because I got to count on the fact that my guy is going to get me 2 yards. In this case, he got him a lot more than 2 yards. But if you look at that slot linebacker, right, that outside linebacker, what that quarterback is looking at is if he cheats out, now you've got yourself what's called a run look. And so now you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down linemen against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defensive guys in the box. Now it's one-on-one quarterback and safety. If the safety has to make that play on the quarterback, it's already at least a first down, right? So it's a great read by the quarterback and even better play call by Coach Elliott. Shout out Coach Elliott. Great play call by Georgia State because, again, it's simple numbers game. Do I have more people outside than they do? If I do, then I'm throwing it. If that linebacker cheats out, then I'm gonna run it. And I've got 5 on 5, and it's up to me to beat the safety. So great play call. It's one of those things where it's a hat for a hat, right? Essentially, if I got more people than you do, chances are I'm going to win that play.
Nice. Yeah, and we'll see that happen one more time here. Even like outside linebacker here, he almost takes a stutter like maybe he's expecting a blindside block almost,
Well, and then what he's looking for is he's checking to see quarterback draw. But that half step that it took him to come up and check for quarterback draw, he's already too late, right?
Gotcha.
It's essentially guess right or guess wrong. And he's kind of out in no man's land because he's not covering that area of the field that makes it a 4-on-4 matchup. But he's also not inside the box enough to where if the quarterback did decide to pull it, he would be available to make a play. So he's kind of like in that no man's land. And unfortunately, he took a step inside, He zigged when he should have zagged.
Yep. And look who we got back. Artie Cat is back. Also for Louisiana tackling. Yes.
That is also fair.
Yeah. And they did a lot of that in the first half. We will talk about more of that here in a minute when we get to the score. So let's go ahead and jump into that now. Our first game of the week was the Thursday night game. Big matchup in Huntington, West Virginia. James Madison looking to come in and possibly be a ranked team, and we now know that they are. And Marshall looking to come in and rebound after 2 straight losses to NC State and Georgia State. JMU takes this one pretty decidedly in the end, however, pretty close throughout most of the game, I would say. TJ, I know you watched probably just about all of this one, if not all of it.
I did.
What can you tell us that you saw in this game with a 20-9 score?
It was the opposite of what we thought, right? What we initially thought going into this game was that big offenses, both had great offensive linemen, both have great players on the outside. We thought it was going to kind of be a barn burner back and forth. The score line to what I initially as far as the deficit goes, what I initially thought JMU was going to win by. However, what I didn't depict was, how well both defenses played. The score is not telling of how close, and I think I texted you during the first half and even in the third quarter of this game. It was some great defense being played, especially up front for both Marshall and JMU. And shout out to the best team in Virginia. JMU's defensive line really came through, and they stopped the Thunder and Herd on a lot of big plays. And for me, it showed that JMU can win a lot of different ways. And that's the mark of a good team, right? If your offense is not clicking on on all cylinders, can your defense make up for it? And vice versa. And they've shown me, and they've shown, I think, college football world, because I think they were talking about it too during the game. It's a shame that they can't, be eligible for a bowl game, because they're going to end this season ranked. I see them winning out, to be quite honest. And it's a shame. And the NCAA needs to change that, because this is a good team and you're not guaranteed next season. I think you and I talked about this last week. You're never going to be guaranteed next season, right? And this might be the best team that they have for the next 4 years. Who knows? And they won't even have anything to show for it. So I think it's awful. I think the rule is terrible. You get a team as dominant as they are on offensive and defensive alignment, and they can't even showcase their talent, because I think they're Cotton Bowl eligible or Cotton Bowl talent-wise eligible, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that the important fact that we were both speaking about is because, most of the team, I don't know about most, a handful of teams in this conference have also gone through this same 2-year adjustment period, penalty, whatever you want to call it. But we're not just arguing for James Madison here. I think you and I both agree that this should be across the board, because what you're doing is you're penalizing these kids for a decision they didn't make. Okay.
Right.
So TJ, you were lucky enough to be in the same competition level throughout your career. And obviously that was a great thing, because you won 3 state national championships. However, I can only imagine how you guys would have felt. Even you would have been a pump to move up to FBS while you were there, I'm sure. But at the same time, to know that you were ineligible to either win a championship or go to a bowl game and say, what the heck are we playing for? Right. I'm not going to transfer out. We've got a good situation. It's just the same thing. Like it's just across the board. If Jacksonville State is eligible, they should also be able. So this is not just
100%.
Us saying, well, just
100%.
JMU special treatment here. TJ and I don't have any love affair with James Madison, but we just think across the board, it's not a fair thing to do to these programs, but more so to these kids who are playing for them and being punted. These guys could be laying the groundwork for what is to come for James Madison or Jacksonville State or whoever it may be. And their legacy is going to be, well, you were really good, but no one really believes how good you could have been, because you never got to play in the bowl game. You never got to play in a conference championship game, whatever it is. So yeah, I think it is unfair. And the other aspect that I talked to some fans of ODU about is, as much as they don't want to see James Madison do it because they're in the same state, if they could have gone to a New Year's Six bowl game this year and they don't go, that's the entire conference losing out on money. Obviously, JMU gets a bigger share of that.
100%.
But the entire conference also gets a payout from sending someone to that game, and everybody loses out. So it's
a no-win for anybody, right? It's a shame, like I said earlier, because right now, if you took JMU outside of probably the top 12 teams in the country, outside of excluding them, and really there might be a couple of them that JMU would put up a good fight against. I don't think there's anybody past 13 to 25 that JMU could not either beat or take them down to the wire. They're that good because here's the thing, the difference between, and we talked about this with Colorado, and not to get too far off track, but we talked about this with Colorado and the difference between them and Oregon and these, teams that have solidified themselves is up front, right? What they look like, offensive line and defensive line. JMU has that. They've got it on both sides of the ball. They're averaging on offensive line 280 across the board, right? It doesn't get any better than that. So there's not a reason why JMU, in my opinion, wouldn't give anybody hell on the football field, top 1 through top 25, but especially that back half of the top 25. You can put anybody on the field with JMU and they'll give them a dogfight.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And as you said, it looks like our app logo is gone away.
Good. It doesn't need to be there.
They'll get it back when they deserve it. Well, real quick, there's a couple things.
Me off so much.
Couple things I want to touch on. So you said James Madison, easily the best team in Virginia.
100%.
Number 2 might be on the screen right now, honestly. Number 2 may still be on the screen. Early season struggles to figure out who the quarterback was. It seems like Wilson's the guy. We got to see if that remains the same. But again, impressive enough to get the job done and win the game. I mean, there's no reason he doesn't see the field more often and get better along the way. Also, in the James Madison game, Jalen Green has been a monster so far this year. But there's another guy who I didn't know the name of, to be honest, and I should have because he's been good most of the year. But he had a great game there against Marshall. Number 5, Walker, on the defensive line as well. He was a huge disruptor when I went back and watched that game. So, yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to that guy. And then before we roll into this, TJ, I wanted to talk about your predictions overall from last week. You had JMU winning by 10 or more. They won by 11, right? We just went over that. ULM wouldn't lose by more than 17. They only lost by 10. Coastal by 10. They won exactly by 10. Stroman was the go-to guy for App State. In this game right here, he gets the last 2 throws. We'll talk about that more in just a second. And you also had Georgia State to win. More of a coin flip in there, to be totally honest, but still. You called all the games almost to exactly a T, so congratulations on that. Well done, sir. And we will let you talk first about what you saw in this game, and then I will share my thoughts in a 28-21 victory for ODU over App State.
Yeah, I mean, listen, where do you want me to start, right? It's the same thing that I've been saying the entire year. And I've talked about it. I've been on, message boards. I've debated people on social media, which I should never do because it's hard to talk football with people who haven't played it. And that's not a slight at anybody. It's just I sit and I watch App play football, right? I'm on my couch and I can tell you exactly what play is going to be run based on down and distance every single time we line up. And if I'm doing it and I'm not getting paid to do it, I'm just sitting at home eating ribs and drinking a Bud Light. What do you think somebody who's getting paid to do it is doing? Right? I can tell you down and distance every single time what we're running. It's zone or, we're going to throw it outside. And, every now and again we mix it up and throw across the middle to a deep end route. We're very vanilla on offense in terms of how we call games, and defensively, we're not disciplined enough against guarding against the big plays, right? So there's and 2, defensively, just like offensively, there's no variation to how we rush the quarterback. The 3-4 defense is great until it's not.
Yeah.
Right. And in a lot of instances,
we're
running it in the ground because we're not stunning when we need to be stunning. If the defensive line is not getting any penetration on the quarterback, then you've got to manufacture some penetration. You've got to manufacture a pass rush. And if you can't do that and have your guys lock up, there were times that it's 3rd and 5 or 6, and our defensive backs are playing 10 yards off the football. What are we doing?
Yeah,
you're giving up a slant or you're giving up a quick stop because you're playing 12 yards off the football and it's 3rd and 6. I don't understand what it is that I don't understand the logic behind how we're playing football. There's a picture that I'm in the group chat with some guys that some former players, and I took a picture of it. I can't remember the down and distance, but we were playing. It was they had doubles, I think, to the top of the screen. And we had a corner and we had a safety. Safety was 14 yards off the ball. The corner was 10 yards off the ball.
Jeez.
And there was nothing but wide open space. And I took a picture. I stopped the TV. I paused it, took a picture of the play, and I posted it in the group. And I said, what kind of defense is this? No one could answer me. All it was, I don't know, man. I don't know what we're doing. I have no idea. I've never seen this before. Why are we playing that deep? There's no reason for us to play that deep. Listen, it drives me crazy because I know we're better than that, and it would be one thing if we didn't have the talent. Because there was a conversation earlier today about, and I'll shut up in a minute. I'll let you go. But there was a conversation a little bit earlier about Coach Moore and how his ramp up time was a little bit different because he was building a program, and I get it. Then was a different time than now. We live in a microwave society at this point. And what's happening is there's no lack of talent. It's a lack of developing the talent. And what we're not doing and what Sean Clark and staff are not doing is developing the talent the right way and calling plays that put you in position to win rather than just put you in position to stay in the ball game, because it's ultimately going to get you beat. So anyway, there's a lot to be fixed. There's a lot to be said, and there's a lot of debate around how much longer Sean Clark is going to be there and be our head coach. I wish him the best. I think he's a great guy, but something's got to change. And there's no slight at ODU, but we should not be losing to ODU ever. That should never happen.
Right. And it was the first time it has ever happened, was this past Saturday. I think it was the first time this was the fourth try. They were 0-3 previously, and most of those games were not close. I will speak on that now, I guess. I'll just go ahead and start and open with that. So going to Norfolk, Virginia, where ODU is located, for those that don't know, was about a 3-hour trek for me, which is exactly the same amount of time it takes me to get to Boone. It was just the opposite direction. So last minute, kind of decided to go and do this. Shout out to Baker Loy for offering up a free ticket that made me even ask the wife for permission to do this.
I was right. I was scared to ask, did you get clearance? How did that work out?
I got clearance, and the way I got clearance was almost kind of joking about it, like, ODU's only 3 hours. I can still make it since it's a night game, And she was like, "Well, if you want to do it, you can." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, shout out to Baker. Unfortunately for Baker, man, he was not feeling too well. He spent some of the game in the maybe I shouldn't say that, but I already started. So he was down in like the like medical area, getting like he even got like IV or something, or I don't know. He had like a massive migraine. He was like, "I'm not drinking because of that, because I just don't feel well." I'll say this. I met up with the Monarchists before the game. Great people, just as cool and as welcoming on their show as they were in person. So it was awesome to see. They offered me tailgate food. I could have stayed there as long as I wanted, kind of thing. And then they also presented me with a little wristband for one of the essentially like the beer garden, or I'm not sure if that's what they call it there. Yeah. So Baker was supposed to go with me. I ended up going solo to that. Just to check it out, and I got to interact with some more ODU fans. So fantastic stadium, by the way, for anyone who's wondering if you should go take a game in up there. You may be close to the area, your team's going there. Fantastic stadium. The layout. Sorry, I don't mixing a bunch of words there together, but the layout is fantastic. Their bathroom situation is a little different. They have a lot more of them. So the ones where you see them, they're smaller bathrooms themselves. Like where App State has like pretty large bathrooms. They have less locations, but bigger areas. Theirs are the opposite of that. They have a lot more locations, but they have smaller bathrooms in each one of those. But they had a bunch of grab and go stations for like a bunch of the food, which kept it moving. Just clear areas to walk. I'd say this, if I'm giving the full review though, you can tell they're a young program with not a ton of history and tradition. Basically most stadiums have a chant that goes from one side to the other. Obviously App State, we are, Marshall, those things kind of go back and forth. ODU doesn't really do any of that. Their crowd wasn't a sellout. They weren't incredibly loud. They did get loud, obviously. And then, there was some kids after the end when they won that tried to rush the field. It's like, is it field rushing worthy? You finally beat someone that you've been trying to beat, but also, they didn't go to a bowl game last year. It may not be going to a bowl game again this year. Remains to be seen, but they're also only 3-3. Again, that wasn't a massive amount of people, but also, before they started their last downfield rush where they ended up taking the lead by a touchdown and 2-point conversion, a lot of people started leaving because they thought that they had blown it. So, yeah, it's a great place to see a game. You also, if you're at the top of the stadium, not a lot of people want to be there, but you have a really cool view, especially of a night game where the sun was setting. Fantastic. But all that being said, yes, disappointing finish. It's offensively, it feels like we're doing enough to win. Maybe we didn't knock it out of the park, but again, still felt like it was enough to win. But we need the defense to come up big, like we just mentioned. It seems like the same kind of things that happened at Coastal or against Coastal happen again in this one. Lots and lots of room for the wide receivers and the quarterbacks to make their plays. I'm just like you. I'm sitting there looking at it before the snap too and going, if this guy just decides to just turn and catch the ball, he's going to have a first down right there.
If he takes a one-step slant, it's a first down.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I don't know what we're doing, man. I don't know what we're doing. And it's almost a curse knowing what I know about football, and really for anybody who watches football and who understands football on the level that you and I understand it. It's almost a curse to understand it this way, because you look at it and it's like, what the hell are you doing? I'd rather not know football than to watch it and see what we were doing and understand, how terrible this was. And Artie Cat says JMU and ODU have been fantastic additions to the Sun Belt. 100 could not disagree, or excuse me, could not agree more. JMU especially, and ODU's certainly holding their way. But JMU, and I've said this for years, right? JMU's program, even back when I played,
yes.
The year we won the national championship, I think it was 2006, the second national championship, they beat us at home. We were up 21-0 at halftime. They were booing their own crowd, and they came back and beat us. I think it was 35-28 or something like that in the second half. They played great football. That was the game that Devin Moore broke his ankle.
Oh, the Devin Moore I got to play golf with.
Yeah. So, JMU's been, they've been good. They've been solid for years. And our third national championship at home, and you were there for this, they should have beaten us in the playoffs. But their coach got greedy and ran the ball instead of taking a knee, kicking a field goal. Yeah. And we recovered a fumble, thanks to Jock Roman and Pierre Banks.
Yeah. Yep. We certainly did. I remember going nuts on that one.
Oh, my God.
For ODU, they're just set up in a great market to be a football program. Again, young, they got a lot of learning to do as an entire fan base. The Monarchists are really strong supporters, and if people follow their leads, trust me, ODU is going to be where they want to be. But they just got to get more of the people that are that entwined to the program. Obviously, they're not going to have all the access the Monarchists have.
Sure.
Just the care and the desire to get this team and program where they want it to be, it will come. Trust me, you've got the setup that you really need. So, man, all my graphics are, crap in the bed here.
It's
watch.
All good.
If I go out here and click around here, now it's not going to want to do anything.
Well,
all right.
Good news is we know we can talk about it.
Yeah, we can still talk. Oh, there we go. I just had to get it to go away and then come back. All right. Yeah. Georgia Southern goes up against ULM. Like we had mentioned earlier, you said that ULM would keep this game closer than the spread indicated. They did do that, and they only lost by 10 here to Georgia Southern. Did you see much of this one? This one was a very weird game. I went back and watched most. I won't lie. I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched most
Yeah, I didn't either.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what happened to ULM is what happens to them in a lot of games. They give up a big quarter.
Yes.
Georgia Southern just went nuts in the second quarter. They basically did whatever they wanted. And Murphy really had a great game for ULM. He threw for 320 yards. He threw an untimely interception, but they had. Offensively, they played great. I just think, like I said, giving up 24 points in a quarter is crazy. That's, you give up 24 points in a quarter, you're thinking you might get blown out.
Yeah.
But they did enough in the third quarter, keeping Georgia Southern scoreless in the third. And they had a pretty explosive fourth quarter, scoring 11 points. I think obviously all those things considered kept them in the game. I did not think that they would lose by 17, like we talked about. I didn't think the spread would be covered. But I didn't see it going the way that it did
Right.
in the second quarter, right? Because that was insane.
Yeah, because I mean, so Jaya Wright started the game. We do need to mention that, and then Murphy took over. It looks like, from what you're seeing here, right? Jaya Wright was keeping this team in all the games essentially, except for that one against Texas A&M, and doing pretty well with the offense. It was the defense. It's kind of like the App State thing. The defense needs to come up a little bit bigger more often.
Right.
But it is interesting. Sometimes it's just one player just makes a change and something sparks. So Murphy could now be the guy. I think we saw enough, like you said, he had a good enough game that he should probably get to see the field to start next week and see what he can produce as a full-time
I say 320
starter.
yards is good enough.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, this game, watching the first quarter and even into the almost midway through the second quarter, really, I'm thinking like this is a deadlock game. And obviously, I didn't really look at the statistics before going back to watch this. I was like, the second half must have exploded, right? And then I'm
Right.
watching and I'm like, it's not going to be halftime anytime soon because Georgia Southern keeps scoring more points.
Right.
I mean, ULM was undisciplined, a lot of penalties and a lot of turnovers. Those are things that they need to fix if they want to be
Right.
even more competitive. But yeah, you're right. I mean, giving up 24 points quickly, especially before the half, and you're just sitting there probably thinking this game's not going our way. Now, credit to them for fighting back and making it even 10 points. Probably never really felt that close towards the end again, but it looks more respectable, and they've got something to kind of hang their hat on, like you said, offensively with a new quarterback at the helm, probably at least going into
it looks
week.
like for the foreseeable future, Murphy's going to be the guy. I mean, well, when I say looks like, I'm with you. In my opinion, he played well enough that he deserves that nod at least next week,
right,
or this coming week.
Yep. All right, we're gonna do this trick again because I don't know what's happening here. Boom. Oh, come on. All right, so for those that are just listening to the audio instead of watching the broadcast here, we are losing our graphics, and I don't know why, because they're certainly showing everywhere else.
Right.
Anyway, this game was between Arkansas State and Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina ends up taking this one 27-17. You said it would be a 10-point victory for the Chanticleers, and it was. So do you want to take your bow here and your acknowledgement and explain to us why you said it was going to be 10 points, and it was?
Yeah, I mean, I think Coastal, while they have a solid offense, it's not as explosive as it's been in years past, right? And Arkansas State at 3-4. I mean, I know they're only 1-2 in Sun Belt. Arkansas State is better than their record shows, and I knew that they were going to put up a pretty good game against Coastal. Now, it helped that when you scored 14 points in a quarter, which is what Coastal did in the second quarter, right? And Arkansas, it really looked like going into halftime that it was going to be a kind of a runaway. 17-3, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's kind of hard to get back to that. But then again, like I said, Arkansas State comes out, holds them to no points in the third quarter. They end up scoring 7. They just couldn't stop Coastal in the fourth, which is sort of kind of what put obviously Coastal over the edge. But Arkansas State is a pretty good football team. I mean, they're not going to be JMU. They're not going to be Marshall or even ODU at this point, the way ODU's playing. But they're good enough, and they're good enough when they need to be. And this was an instance where they needed to be.
Yeah. Oh, I think the audio dropped out there for a second. You hear me over there, TJ?
Yep, I got you.
All right. Are we back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think my internet went out. So
That
it, the
that'll do it.
stream is still going. Were you on the whole time I was out?
I don't know if I was on or not. It said at one point it said I was backstage, and I'm like, well, that makes sense because you're the guy you're controlling the situation. But I was like, let me be still just in case I'm not like I don't want to be over here sneezing. And good, we're back
Artie
on
Cat
air.
stuck
Good.
with us, so we're good. Thank you, Artie, for first of all just participating. This is fun. It's always good to have you back. I know we didn't have any interaction last week, sadly, so it's good to have somebody on who cares and also who's a Texas State supporter because we don't see enough of those or hear enough from them. Although it looks like this year we're going to be hearing a lot from those guys overall. So good to see Artie Cat back and interacting with us here and letting us know we're back on the air. So yeah, sorry for that little mix up. I think I'm going to keep the highlights off today because I think that what may be screwing things up a little bit. So we'll see if going without those and just going with these graphics that are still not working greatly work out a little bit better. So I'll add that back to the screen and see if it'll just start working at some point. So we were talking about the Coastal game. TJ, where were you at with that? I can't remember where we left off now.
Yeah, no, I was just, basically saying, Arkansas State is a better team than a lot of people gave them credit for in the beginning of the season, right? It's one of those teams. I mean, listen, they're not going to be at the top of the West. It just won't happen. I mean, you've got Louisiana. I mean, you've got, even Texas State is doing really well. Alabama,
Troy and South Alabama.
Yep. Right, South Alabama. I mean, it's they're not going to be those teams at least yet, but they're holding their own water, and they're always going to be in the game because they play tough and they play hard, and that's what happened against Coastal. I mean, they gave them a great game, especially the last 3 quarters of the game. Defensively, they played really well. First half they didn't play great defensively, but then second half they picked it up. And ultimately, didn't come away with the win. And there's no moral victories in football, so I'm not giving them a moral victory. However, they're one of those teams that in the next couple of years, once they get, so because really think about recruiting in their state, it's Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they're recruiting against. So they're going to start getting some talent here soon.
Yeah, and Butch Jones has been bringing in talent, and that's why I'm like, is he going to be on the hot seat, or is he already on the hot seat? As Shaw
We're
Clark
not developing that talent. Yeah.
The good news for Arkansas State is it's been a while since they've been good, so maybe they're not clamoring as much as the App State faithful are doing at the moment. Maybe he's got some more time to build up the talent that he is bringing in, because we see Jalen Rayner, North Carolina native, actually, who's going out there and playing quarterback pretty successfully for them. So we'll see if they can, kind of continue that as they get going here. And man, another graphic down the drain. This one, though, had Georgia State taking out Louisiana 20-17. This was, basically this was a tale of two halves, whether you watched the game or just looked at the stat line. I mean, you could figure it all out from that. But obviously we saw that clip at the beginning of the game. It looked like Georgia State could have run away with it. What did you see or look back on in this game particularly?
So it's like you said, a tale of two halves, right? Because when you look at the first quarter and it's like Georgia State can't get the ball rolling. But neither team can. They're both playing outstanding in defense. And then you get in the second half and Georgia State, has an explosion. And they, put up 20 quick points to their 7, and you're thinking, this could get bad quick. And then they, pitch a shutout in the third and fourth quarter. So it was like, Louisiana didn't do enough to win it in the second half, but I don't think Georgia State. I'll say this: Georgia State didn't give us what we expected them to give us based on how they've played in the past. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
They did enough to win, but
yeah,
I'm sure Coach Elliott's not happy.
Yeah, that's true. And we've talked about it before. Much like, again, a couple other teams in conference, defense is really the thing that is going to win you games and win you championships. And Georgia State really still has to round that defense into full form if they hope to contend for an actual title here. I think they've undoubtedly got the offense, even though they got shut down pretty well here in this one. It didn't look like they were going to be shut down in that first half, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, they got the quarterback. Granger's the guy. There's no doubt about it. He's worthy of the position and getting all the accolades that he's got. It's just rounding that defense into form to make it a fully functioning machine as far as on the field. And then they could look a lot more similar to like a James Madison, although I honestly think Georgia State's offense is a little bit more dangerous than
I was going to say probably a little more explosive based on the weapons that they have in the backfield.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, JMU doesn't need the weapons because their defense good enough, but yeah, it's interesting that matchup could be interesting. Let's just say.
Agreed.
So that I think, that rounds it up. We'll jump into this Thursday night's matchup, tomorrow night's matchup. In this one, going to be a great one between the two Georgia schools. Yes, and we will jump into that right after a Dano's seasoning ad. Yum, yum, get you some. Very good. Yum, yum, get you some. Yum, yum, get you some. Yum, yum, get you some.
Dano's seasoning, food's favorite flavor.
Yum, yum, get you some.
I'm Joe Burrito, your favorite burrito. Whoa.
Joe,
hey.
We all know you're the best.
What?
You can always do better. Try the new Dano's Hot Chipotle.
Hey. Ooh, that's spicy. Yum, yum.
Yum, yum, get you some.
Yeah, we definitely agree that the Chipotle flavor is a favorite of ours.
Yeah. It went well on my cheesesteak pasta tonight. So.
I think that may be the only thing it doesn't go well on is cheesecake.
Probably so. I would venture to bet that's probably not a good mix.
No, probably not. Although, hey, I don't know. Maybe it's a certain type of cheesecake and it could work too. We'll have to. Well, I don't know. We probably won't see. But we'll jump into just leaving from the Georgia State game from last week into this one this week, man. I'll tell you what, I'm excited to see this.
Heck yeah.
This new version of hate, new state of hate, whatever they're calling this rivalry. One of them calls the other one the trash down south. Bag State. I mean, they really don't like each other, and it's awesome from an outsider's perspective. I mean, this is what we all want. Obviously, we just talked about Darren Granger. I think you are probably a little bit better to speak on Caleb Hood and what he's done at the wide receiver position. If I'm not mistaken, he was actually there when they were still running the triple option. So talk about maybe what this guy can do as far as the offensive side of the ball and explosiveness that he can provide, and maybe what we'll see overall for this game as well on Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, he's super explosive. I mean, 57 receptions, 590 yards. He's everywhere, right? I mean, he's all over the field. You give him the ball. I mean, he's a big play waiting to happen at any moment. I mean, he's basically averaging a first down every time he touches the football, which is insane. I mean, and that's big time. I mean, I think he's a well-built kid too. What does he go about 190 pounds, 200 pounds? I mean, he's a good sized kid. And I mean, he runs great. He runs great routes. He's got great field vision, and he reads the defenses very well. He knows how to find those holes, sit down in the zone, and when he catches the ball, he turns in, he's getting north. There's no wasted steps. There's no wasted motion. He gets the ball, and he's gone. So I think he's going to be a handful, really, for anybody that they play, but especially in this game. Coach Elliott's got his work cut out, and that defense have got their work cut out. Garden, he's good enough with the ball in his hands that once he catches it, he turns into a running back, and that is scary. Because you and I both know there's a difference between a wide receiver who catches the ball and is still a wide receiver and a wide receiver that catches the ball and turns into Deebo Samuel. And, that's who he is. You know, I mean, obviously he's not Deebo Samuel, but he catches the ball and he turns into a running back. And that's the yards after catch with Caleb Hood is scary.
So you're saying there's a difference between Deebo Samuel and Curtis Samuel? Is that what you're saying?
Just a little bit. Just a little like that much.
Yeah. So he's listed at 5'10", 180. So what size were you playing at when you were in college, TJ? Because it's got to be similar, isn't it?
Yeah, I was five. Well, I was listed at 5'10". I was not 5'10". I was 5'8" and some change. I was about $192-ish, roughly, a little bit thicker than he is.
So yeah, similar sizes still though overall.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not.
We have
one of
a
your
lot. There's a lot of
6'3".
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels to the way we play, right? Catching the ball, becoming a running back. Well, the way I played, past tense, because I can't. My knees. I don't have these knees. They don't do the same things they used to do. But no, there's some similarities, right, into how that. Yeah, absolutely, Artie. Going to be another great Sun Belt game, and I cannot wait to watch this tomorrow night. But yeah, he catches the ball, like I said earlier. I mean, I know I'm basically, essentially, at this point, repeating myself, but I love everything about him except the Adidas on the jersey.
Yeah, you're not an Adidas guy. I remember that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you're right though, because I think the first couple times I heard or saw his name, either I assumed he was a running back because he was at Georgia Southern, or knew that they had kind of transitioned him. But whatever they did and whatever he's done is working very well. So I think this one's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a lot of points in this one, to be honest with you. I think
absolutely.
Pretty
I'm taking the over. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh man, I thought my graphics were all going to be working. Looks like we're still missing our App A in this one. But anyway, next up matchup. By the way, that Thursday night game is a 7:30 start on ESPN2, so everybody across the country should be able to see that. Georgia Southern favored by only 1 point in that one. As far as the favorite,
tune in, get your TV set, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a barn burner.
Yes, please do. There's going to be a lot of people. I don't know if it'll be quite a packed house. I know they're working on that, so hopefully we'll see that. Yeah, Southern Miss versus App State, 3:30 kick, ESPN Plus for this one. App State favored by 17 points. As bad as Southern Miss is, they still have Frank Gore on the roster. They're still looking to turn some things around and get some momentum going. So do you see this being a 17-point spread in Boone for homecoming on Saturday?
Listen, I at this point, man, I don't know. And watch, this will be the game that they win by 100 because they're supposed to, right? And I don't see it the way we've played football, the way we've given up plays, and the way our defense has played, and again, how predictable our offense is. And even with the predictability of the offense, we're still putting up 20, 30 points a game. We just can't stop anybody else from doing the same thing. So 17 points seems like a lot. I'm going to say they just barely cover the spread. The over is 55.5, probably taking the over just because neither one of these teams are going to stop each other, to be quite honest. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored. Joey's going to have a field day. That defensive backfield for Southern Miss is not good at all. They allow a lot of big plays. Now, whether or not we take advantage of that and not just run in routes and slants and bubble screens, that remains to be seen. But they are capable of being burnt on the back end. And as good as our run game is in offensive line, as much as I say we are predictable running the stretch zone, we are good at it. So, it's one of our strengths, and that's unfortunately one of Southern Miss's weaknesses is stopping the run. So if I had to pick, I'm certainly going with the over. I think maybe we cover the spread. I'd say safely anywhere between 14 to 20 points is kind of where we'll fall winning this game, in terms of how many points we win by. So safe bet is 17, probably get close to the spread. Hard to say. I know both teams are going to score some points because neither team can stop each other.
I think I can agree with that. We had two FCS opponents last year, right? Neither one of those games were put away by halftime like they should have been.
Right.
And if you face a good FCS team, maybe you say, well, the other team was better than we thought. Neither one of those teams were any good. Right. Last year we couldn't separate, we couldn't put them away. so far this year against like competition and even unlike competition. I mean, we took UNC to the wire, and we saw before last week, and when they lost everything that they had going for them, we saw that they were a better team than what we've been facing. But the separation is what doesn't come. So to me, I wouldn't be surprised here if we only win by like 10 or 14.
Yeah.
I hope we win by more, but it wouldn't shock me. Like you said, predictable offense, defense that needs a lot of work. But again, hopefully the other side is pretty much the same, if not worse. And if Southern Miss fans are asked right now, they're telling you they're really terrible. I don't think App fans are saying we're really bad. You know what I mean? We just can't win, but it's not because we're bad. Well, defense is bad, I guess. Or just not great.
But we got to define bad, because bad doesn't mean there's a lack of talent. The talent is there.
Right. Yeah.
You understand? I mean, we've got a true freshman at playing defensive end who wreaked havoc last week. We have the talent.
Nate Johnson?
Nate Johnson is a beast. Yeah. We have the talent to be successful. We're not coaching and developing the talent the right way. And I said this earlier, it goes back to what we're instilling in. Sean Clark is a great guy, and I love him to death as a former player. But he's not turning it on. He's not tapping in to what these guys are. He's not maxing out, making them max out their potential. And I think that's the problem. And there's not consequences for not playing well. Nobody fears not playing well. And that's the thing. Back when I was playing, when we had coaches like Coach Elliott and Coach Satterfield and guys like that, there were consequences for not playing well. You didn't see the field. And sometimes you cut off your nose to spite your face, and you put somebody else that isn't as good as the talent that you put in there to make your point heard. Because there has to be consequences for not playing good football. And defensively, we're missing too many tackles. We're giving up too many big plays, and there are no consequences for that. So nobody fears not being, no one fears being taken out of the game. No one fears running after practice or anything like that, because we're just a bunch of nice guys. And that's not how our program is built. So anyway, I don't want to keep going because it's going to piss me off some more. But
one more quick question though, and your quote from last week, I didn't bring that up yet. I want to say that right now because I think it goes across the board for any coach. But you said this about Clark because obviously probably have a lot of App fans that listen to us. Call the plays that are going to win you the game, not just have you in the game, because having you in the game will make you lose. And that's literally a more perfect quote couldn't have been said so far for what we've seen this year on the field. I will ask you, though, how much of that is put on the shoulders of Frank Ponce versus Sean Clark? I mean, we know Frank Ponce had some success here in Boone, then left to go to Miami, and then seemingly comes back. All of a sudden, like maybe Miami was going to see him out the door anyway. Is he also holding back or not developing these players on the offensive side, even though that's not the bigger concern here? But, I mean, the winning aspect, right? I mean, when you look at the wins and losses, it's both sides of the ball, obviously. Sure. Defense gets the bigger one, as we know, but is there something that could be done more offensively to, like you said, with the predictability? Just quickly, whatever you have to say on that aspect of things.
Yeah, it's twofold, right? If I know what the team I'm playing against is going to do, it's easy to prepare for it. I know we're going to run the stretch zone, right? I know that stretch zone is probably going to come on first down and second down. And if it's third and less than 6, they're probably going to run it again on 3rd and 6 because that's just who we are, right? And I think that predictability, I think for Ponce. So to go to your original question, which was who I guess is more to blame, it's essentially what you were getting at. I don't know that there's more to blame on Ponce than there is Sean Clark, because at the end of the day, you got to sign off on these plays being sent in. You have ultimate veto, right? If it's not going to work, then that's on you to decide if it's not going to work. But I know that if I can see it from my couch, that coach is getting paid a couple $100,000 across the field from you, he can see it too. And that's the problem. There's times we're playing against teams and they're giving us an 8-10 yard cushion on first down. and I'm thinking, just throw the quick stop, 5-yard quick stop. Let's get 6 yards, and let it, 2nd down and 4.
Yeah.
Why are we not doing that? Instead, we're running a stretch zone for 3 yards, and that's fine. But we got to make ourselves more. We got to have some variation to our offense. I remember a time when we were playing with Scott Satterfield, and he would call whatever the defense was giving us. It didn't matter what we thought the game plan was going to be going into the game. If he saw something during that game that said, hey, we got to take advantage of it, the middle of the field, or if they're playing, soft zone, or if they're playing off of our best receivers, we're going to throw the football. Yeah. Because that's what the game calls for. And I think we're coming into the games with a game plan, and we're sticking to it no matter what the circumstances say. And that's not winning football.
Right. Well said. Well said. Man, I was really hoping this one will work out. Let's see if we can get this thing going here. Go back and forth, and boom. No. All right. Well, anyway, next up at a 5 o'clock kick on ESPN Plus as well, we've got Arkansas State going up against ULM. Again, kind of both towards the bottom of the West, as we probably both thought going into the season. But I think both better than what we thought were going to be initially. ULM actually favored in this one by 2 points. Although here in the graphic, we've got the quarterback Jalen Rayner, and on the other side of the ball, Tyrone Howell, who's been a standout wide receiver, just a big bruising wide receiver. I don't know his exact size, but he's a big dude, not easy to bring down. What do you see happening in this one? We just talked about, the quarterback change, whatever. Where do you see this one going?
Yeah, I'm taking the Warhawks in this one. They've played tough all year. And as much, I know I just talked about Arkansas State, and I gave them a lot of praise, being better than what we thought they were going to be. I think UL Monroe is a lot better than what we thought they were going to be as well. And I think they showed me a lot when they played against App, but they've also showed me a lot against some other teams that they've played and kept it close. Even in a loss, they keep games close. I think this is one that they bring home. Because they've got talent, right? It's not a lack of talent. It's just the teams that they've played have been in a smidge better in some areas. And I think this is a more even and low key. If you're looking for another quality game to watch, this is one of them. I think it's going to be a really good football game, and good in a way that it's not good on good. It's not top two teams versus each other. But it's good in a way that you've got some teams that are up and coming that are starting to, make some noise in the coming years. And this will be a good litmus test for who's sort of on the right track to doing that. So just a heads up, if you guys are looking for a pretty good matchup and, in the Sun Belt Conference, this will be one of them for sure.
Yes. I think both of these teams are going to go through the air. A guy named Courtney Jackson for the Red Wolves is the one to keep an eye on, and obviously Tyrone Howell there for ULM. But I think you're exactly right. That was what I was thinking about at this game. It's not going to blow you away, but there's some talented players on the field for each side that are worth watching. So absolutely check into that one. And it's a good time too, because it's kind of, it does start as the same as the next game. But other than that, it's that 5 o'clock start. Not a whole lot of other games are going on at that point. So good one to tune into there. Check out what you see on the field. Another one that I think you should be tuning into for multiple reasons is Louisiana taking on South Alabama. Both of them 4-3 overall for the season. Kind of at different points, right? I mean, the Cajuns feel like almost a mirrored copy of what App State was. Former champions, struggled a little bit the last seasons. Right. Struggling again a little bit this year. People are wondering kind of what's going on. Why can't we close out games? South Alabama's had some explosive games and they've had some big letdowns. So what do you think happens in this one that has the Jaguars favored by 10 points currently?
Yeah, I'm definitely not picking them by 10. I think it's going to be a lot closer than that. You're not going to get me picking them by 10. And if it is by 10, it'll be at the end of the game in some garbage time. Well, there's no such thing as garbage time, but towards the end of the game when it's not, it's pretty much decided. I think these are two teams very evenly matched. Like you said, both are kind of going through that who are we kind of phase, right? Like, what are we doing? Artie's got South Alabama winning. Listen, I'm not going to argue with you. One way or the other, it's for me, it's a pick 'em. You can flip a coin, and for my money and decide who's going to win this game. Louisiana, there's times when they look like world beaters, and then there's times when they look like I don't know. I don't know who you are. So I think it'll be close. I do have, I guess if I had to put my money on it, I'd put it on South Alabama, but I'm not picking them by 10. That's for damn sure.
You don't think they could have a Oklahoma State explosion like they did?
I think it's possible, but I'm not betting on it.
Yeah, not that Oklahoma State was at full power that week.
Sure.
They had a lot of guys injured. They had like a third string quarterback going or something. I can't remember. And I don't think, you replay that game right now, probably different. But I mean, you got Carter Bradley back there, Webb running the ball, Callan Lacey, as we see in the graphic here, who's one of the best wide receivers in the whole conference. I'll go against the grain here with you. I'm taking South Alabama to win. I just think that they could win this by more than 10. But 10's a good. I can see why they put that. I see why they put that on the bet line, right? That's going to get a lot of action. But I think they could win it by more than 10. If they do, I'm not saying 20 some points. I think it'd be like
but I also
13
think
or 17.
Louisiana could win it by more than 10. If they play their best game, Louisiana can beat them by more than 10.
Do you think so? I don't know.
Absolutely, I do.
I think the Jags defense is better than what Louisiana just saw last week with Georgia State. So I think that's going to be a big test. And Zeon Chris, to his credit, is a developing quarterback who has already, to me, gotten better in the pocket than what he was. A lot of times he was pulling that ball down real quick in the first 1 or 2 games that we saw him and just running right away, which he's fantastic at, by the way. So
I was going to say, it's not a terrible attribute.
Right. It's really not. But with what South Alabama has up front and in the secondary even, I think that they could shut them down. He's still a young quarterback who is still developing, and I just don't know if I see him taking his team to victory in this game.
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be shocked by it if they did, but I wouldn't think it would come easy. It'd be like a last-second victory if they were to pull this type of thing off. So, I'm taking the Jags in this one. Maybe I'm taking the Jags because I had them as my preseason Western Conference or Western Division champs. So, I got to kind of stick with that, whether I want to or not at this point.
Right. Got to ride that wave.
You got Texas State, Troy up there. They're both all battling for it. So we'll see what happens with that one. Speaking of some teams battling for the top spot, especially with James Madison being ineligible, the next matchup, a 6 p.m. kick on the NFL Network once again. Marshall going up against Coastal Carolina. Just as in the previous game, these two teams both come in with 4-3 records as well. We see Rasheen Ali here for Marshall and Sam Pinckney over here for Coastal Carolina. Some people are probably wondering why I chose Pinckney instead of Grayson McCall. Well, for all the people that saw the game and the essential dirty, cheap shot, targeting, was it not targeting, whatever, Grayson McCall is questionable going into this one. So my key player that I know is going to play the game, unless something crazy happens from now until then, is Sam Pinckney, who's obviously still an amazing wide receiver and actually started his career at Georgia State, of all places. So what do you see in this one? Does Marshall have another pretty good defensive display and keep Coastal down and out and take advantage of that, or what do you see?
Yeah, I absolutely see that. And it's no shot at Coastal. Nothing personal. I just don't think Coastal has enough to beat Marshall. Marshall played a very good JMU game or JMU team last week, and for all intents and purposes, barely lost. JMU is the cream of the crop right now in this conference, East and West. I don't care who you are. And really, quite honestly, cream of the crop for all G5 schools. I think they could beat Tulane right now. If you put them up there. And I think, Marshall gave them all they want. I mean, gave them fits, especially on that defensive line.
Yeah.
So Do I think they could repeat it? Absolutely. Against Coastal. Coastal can certainly be had. App State didn't have them, but it can certainly be had up front. And I think that's where they'll dominate and be the difference. But I tell you this, Rasheen Ali, I love watching him run the football. He is a heck of a running back. And I think he'll be the difference too. I think it'll be hard for them to stop the run game because of how good Marshall is up front. And a lot of that showed too against James Madison. Even though James Madison defensive line held their own for sure against Marshall. But I think they'll be too much for Coastal.
Yeah, I agree. They are going to control the clock and control the game there on the ground. We saw last year without Grayson McCall what this Coastal Carolina team looked like, and to be honest with you, it was not impressive.
Right.
At least not to me. It wasn't impressive, and so I think for that reason, I think if he doesn't play, they don't yet have their heir apparent to Grayson McCall's greatness, and they struggle at the quarterback position. And I don't think, like you mentioned, they're good enough defensively to overcome that, right? I think as we saw with James Madison against Marshall, they knocked out their starting quarterback, and the secondary guy got to start. Well, their defense was still good enough that it wasn't a big, even if the drop off occurred, it defensively they were going to be able to cover for that. I don't think that same situation is there. And then I think also, let's say, Rasheen Ali did not go last week against James Madison, right? Was held out of the game like last second for whatever reason. I don't think I ever heard why. Maybe he's just a little banged up. But Ethan Payne, I don't know if you saw, you were watching the game. You see that hurdle that he pulled off?
No, I missed it. So I went back and saw the highlights, but I missed it. It was great hurdle.
Yes, great hurdle. One of the next plays, though, like maybe as a possession or two later, he doesn't have a straight hurdle, but he just kind of just does this little bunny hop, whatever you want to call it, over a guy.
Right, yeah.
And he gets tattooed. I think it was Walker who had that hit. The number 5 for James Madison I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Just destroys him because he wasn't fully planted on the ground. He had no way to get out of that tackle.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, my point is mainly that Ethan Payne is also very capable. He's not Rasheen Ali. He's never going to be Rasheen Ali. So it will
There's
be
not many people that are Rasheen Ali.
No, very few. But they could still get it done with Payne being the main guy. I think, he still had a pretty productive day when you look at how JMU's defense has done against running backs overall for the season. I think he was over 60 yards. Again, that's not going to blow you away, but go look at what JMU's done to like Kamani Vidal earlier in the season for Troy, who's also a tremendous running back. So Ethan Payne, had more yardage than that. And part of that is also Marshall's front line there, giving him the ability to do so. I think Marshall takes this one to be, they're favored by 4. I think they win by at least a touchdown or more, especially if Grayson McCall does not go. But
agreed.
Speaking of Kamani Vidal, he is in our next graphic here as we've got Troy matching up against Texas State. We'll see if Artie Cat's still with us. I'm sure he's got something to say about this game as both teams come into this one 5-2, 7 p.m. kick on ESPN Plus has Troy favored by 5.5 points. We know Texas State has beaten Baylor to start the year, big victory, but this team in Troy may be better than the Baylor team. Baylor's getting hot now, so maybe it's a totally different situation, but
right.
Thoughts and feelings on this one and what we could see on the field?
I think we got ourselves another pick 'em, to be quite honest. My smart money says go with Troy, right? Because Troy has been the more consistent team. Saying that they're both 5-2, right? Over the years, Troy has bbeen more dependable than Texas State, and there's Artie Cat. We knew he was going to chime in. All 3 game came in great for Texas State. Got players back healthy. What's it going to be? Yeah, I mean, listen.
One of those won't be as difficult as the other. Let's just be honest about that.
Right.
Arkansas State, a little bit easier matchup. Troy, you get through that one, you're going to be okay. But
right. So What's that? One of this is not like the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Just a
I
little bit.
think. Listen, I like TJ Finley a lot. I like him a lot. He's a big, sturdy quarterback. He's got a cannon for an arm. But I also like Troy. I mean, I like Kamani, but listen. If you're asking me to pick, I mean, smart money is with Troy. I'm just not confident. I can tell you that. I'm not confident about it, but I'll take Troy. What say you?
Man, that is a good one. I think you got to go with defense wins championships, defense wins games. So yeah, I mean, I think Troy is strong enough defensively. You saw what kind of struggle James Madison had against them earlier in the season. So yeah, I just don't know if I would. I think, like you said, you could flip a coin here because you got Mahdi on the other side. The other, you got Hobart. I mean, both you just go through the guys on both sides of the ball, and you're just like, yeah, he's a playmaker.
Both have
He's explosive.
guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
both have guys.
A couple of these teams we've gone through and go, okay, they got a good quarterback, but they don't have a running back very well, or they've got this, but they don't have that. But you go down the roster with these guys, and the only question mark I had actually coming into the season was what Gunnar Watson would do. Threw a lot of interceptions last year.
He did, yeah.
He's only got one more than Finley at this point. He's only thrown 4 interceptions. So I'm not saying he's fully corrected all the mistakes or reads, but obviously he's gotten better. And I think their offense in total has gotten better. So if their offense has gotten better and their defense is anywhere as close to where they were last year, they were the champs last year. So it's hard to go against them with the up and coming team that we've seen, but also seen Texas State struggle with ULM. Not that, again, we've already touched on this. ULM,
I was going to say,
State,
tough team.
Both better than we previously thought. But when it comes down to those minor differences that win or lose you a game, I mean, I've got to go with the pedigree of what Troy's bringing in with that defense, with the experience of being in big moments last year and coming away with victories. And most of those, probably the only one that they did come away with a big victory in is the Hail Mary at App State. But that's, again, like you said earlier on the other play that happened against App as ODU had, it's one of those lucky plays. For the most part, Troy gets it done. And I think that they will have just enough to get it done. And Artie brings up a good point. Texas State's defense will have to step up big time in order to stop these guys on the other side of the ball because they have improved. We thought the defense would get worse. We didn't know what the offense would do. The offense has certainly improved. So we'll just have to see if they can put it all together because if they have an off game, Texas State can certainly take advantage of that. I don't know if you got any more things to say on this one before we move into what I think is our last matchup of this coming weekend.
No, I think you hit it. I think you hit it dead on, man. I got Troy.
Gotcha. Well, with that being said, last matchup of the weekend. Now we are using College Football Dog's official ranking. So JMU is coming in at number 20, which is quite a bit higher than where they're at in most polls, which I think is 25 in the AP and coaches. Or if they're the same in both, I'm not even sure off the top of my head. But since we work for College Football Dogs, we are going to use our official rankings for this. JMU comes in at number 20 with a 7-0 record, facing an Old Dominion team who's coming in with just 4-3 record overall, but one heck of a defense coming into this one. And if you notice, for the first time throughout all these graphics, 2 defensive players, no offensive players. I was just getting ready to say,
you switched it up on me.
I did. Well, I had to go with what I thought was kind of the best player on both teams. That's what I typically did on all of these. And to me right now, it's certainly on the Old Dominion side, far and away, Jason Henderson at the linebacker position. And, I said Walker just had a great game for James Madison, but I think down in distance every time I'm going to pick Jalen Green as the guy, right? I think he's still the perennial number 1. If you go back and watch highlights, he's continually double teamed. So if you're getting double teamed on most plays, you're probably your team's best player. Yeah. So James Madison, 8:00 kick, ESPNU for this one. So a little bit more national television. James Madison favored by 20 points. What do you think about that? What do you think
That's
about
a
that?
lot, man. That is a lot. But I tell you what, I think JMU answers the bell for sure and covers the spread.
Oh,
They're too much, man. JMU is too much on both sides of the ball, right? They can do it. I mean, we saw it against really we've seen it all season, but we've seen it against Marshall last week, and every team they played against defensively, their defensive pass rush, they don't have to blitz. They don't have to manufacture a pass rush. They can get to your quarterback with 4, right? So they can do it on defense. Offensively, they've got receivers that can catch the ball in traffic, catch the ball over you. The 50-50 ball becomes a 70-30 ball because they've got the better matchup on the outside. And they've got, a strong run game. So I think JMU, and we've said this, and obviously I think at this point you've had to be blind to disagree, that they're the most well-rounded football team in our conference. And I think that I think they do cover the spread. I will say this, though. Jason Henderson is probably the most sure tackler that we have in this conference. He rarely misses tackles. And like Artie Cat said, I think, he thinks every game is going to be competitive this week. I agree with that. But I think this one might get, if we had to pick one that could get out of hand, this one could certainly get out of hand. And not because JMU is going to score 1 million points, but because they're going to stop you from scoring. And if they score 27 or 24 and you score 3, then that, in my opinion, is a runaway.
that's true. So being there in person, it was evident that ODU uses that 2-back system with Wicks and Callaway, who are both good backs. But as we've seen, and as you just mentioned, that front 4, that front 7 for James Madison is just nasty at stopping the run. So you better have a different game plan. And sadly for ODU, I didn't see anybody catching the ball that really scared me. Let's say this. It's not that they're not capable, right? But it's the fact that they didn't have a go-to wide receiver. To me, right. ODU does not have a go-to wide receiver, someone that they out and out trust to throw the ball to all the time, to get them the first down, to make the big play. Maybe they do have that, and we just didn't see it this last game, but it was definitely not evident against App State. So without that, I've definitely got to favor James Madison to win the game. However, I think ODU's defense can also shut down JMU's offense. Not completely.
I was going to say shut down is a tall order.
Yeah, but to me, from what we saw in that Marshall game with James Madison, I was less impressed with their offense than I was coming into the game. And again, like you have mentioned, a lot of that is to do with the fact that Marshall was good defensively.
Right.
But I think this ODU team could be just as good defensively. So I'm calling this game closer than the 20-point spread, and I think it could come down to a late fourth quarter play or two. Now, it could end up being like a 10-point spread, but again, that's kind of like one of those, I don't know, they throw an interception and they're already in field goal range kind of thing, and they kick the field goal because there's still 40 seconds left and they don't have any way to stop the clock. So I just think it might be closer than the 20-point spread. I think that's giving the JMU offense too much credit.
Well, but so here's the thing, though, and I get it. You're saying we're giving JMU's offense too much credit, and I get that. They're not uber explosive, and they don't have to be. They don't need to be, because JMU, quite frankly, their defense can carry the weight even if their offense is not explosive. But let me throw this at you. How will the JMU versus UConn game be? I don't know. We'll get to that in just a second, Artie Cat. Let me throw this at you. I guess I'll pose it as a question. Can JMU hold Old Dominion under 10 points?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they could.
Okay. Can JMU score 30?
I think I see your point. They can. Yeah, they could.
So they've shown us that they can score 30.
Yeah.
And almost, every other game that they've played this year. I mean, we can go back and look at the scores that they've. I mean, they just put up 28 last week. So if we know that they can score 30 and we know that they can hold an offense like ODU under 10, then I think what Vegas is doing in terms of calling it a 20-point spread, I think logically makes sense mathematically. I get what you're saying because ODU is good enough on defense where they can hold JMU, to under 30 or under 20 or whatever. I don't see that happening because I see JMU having the ball more times than ODU has the ball.
Yes, I could. I'll definitely agree with that. Yeah, JMU is definitely going to have more possessions, and we saw how. I mean, it seemed like both teams last week were just like trying to get out of their own end zone. I don't think I've ever seen a game that seemed to happen so much in.
Inside the 10-yard line as many times.
Yeah, and so also credit to the punters on both teams for putting their teams in those positions.
Field position matters.
It does, and obviously we saw Marshall get their first points of the game on a defensive safety, and we saw that clip as you started off the show with. So, yeah, unbelievable in that one. But yeah, like I already said, going to have some great games overall in the Sun Belt this week. Sorry, I'm trying to find. There we go. There's both of us. So, yeah, let's bring Artie's question back up. How bad will the JMU versus UConn game be? It'll be a bloodbath.
Yeah, 100-0. It's going to be a lot to. It's going to be a lot to a little bit.
Yeah, I think the sad part is UConn's improved since last season, and I still think that they're not going to be.
We won't be able to tell. It won't show up this game. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's a reason that JMU was desired to be brought into a conference, and UConn was not, and this will to show that to a full effect. And obviously, as we're ending the show here too, let's bring up the fact, and I'm sure you saw this, although we didn't talk about it. We did talk about Army last week. Did you see that they have been officially invited to join the American Conference starting in, I believe, 2024? Maybe it's 25.
Yeah, I heard that during the broadcast. Yeah.
Yeah. So thoughts on that? Because
I think so. First of all, it's great for them, great for Army as a school, right? I think they're getting the national attention that they need. I think that if in fact they do accept the invite, I think that's going to call for a revamping of their offense. Because
as we spoke about,
right, you can't run that offense and win football games competitively and consistently enough. You're going to win 10-7 against some teams that can't score that much, right? Or that often. You're going to win 13-10 and whatever. But there's going to be some teams that you're going to run into more times than not in college football that are capable on a week in and week out basis of scoring 21 to 28 to 30 points. And if you can't match that, that's going to be a problem. So I think offensively some things have got to change for them to be competitive in that conference. I could be wrong, but there's a reason why Georgia Tech changed their offense. It matters when you start playing real competition. So we'll see.
Yeah. And a reason Georgia Southern changed their offense. Although seems to be working out pretty well for Air Force this year.
That's true, but also we got to look at who Air Force is playing. So there's that.
There's that too. And it's an offense that like those Mountain West teams, well, I mean, I guess they've seen, right? Because they've been in the Mountain West for some time, but still it's an offense that they don't have much experience with compared to some of these teams in the Southeast who've seen this type of offense a little more often. But also, Artie Cat has something to say. I don't know if you've noticed Sam Houston, who's obviously moving up well too. They keep getting so close to that first victory, but they just can't
get over the hump.
It is interesting though, because this is the type of team when you've had so many close victories that you add a recruiter to. I mean, you're down there in Texas, some excitement coming in. Maybe they turn a couple of these close losses into wins next year, and they start off pretty hot or something. But yeah, it's got to be a struggle for the Bearcats down there in Sam Houston, and unfortunately, because they've had a sad start to the win-loss column, their attendance is struggling mightily from the looks of it, at least from what we've seen on TV. So Texas is huge in football, but if you don't win, people still care less. So you've got to still win it on the field enough to keep people interested in hanging around your program. As far as that's concerned, TJ, thoughts or teams you'd like to speak about before we wrap this thing up for tonight?
Here's something that's gonna make you sad. Duke is now the best football team in North Carolina, and possibly South Carolina.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's...
And real quick, Artie Cat says that Sam Houston State goes up against Texas State next year, and that they have a 94-year rivalry until 2005. So, yeah, that'll be nice to reunite that, especially if both teams are getting better, which Texas State certainly is. We'll see if Sam Houston State can put that together. But, yeah, going back to your statement, I mean, being right here in Durham, nobody talks about Duke football until this year.
And I'm sure they love that. Duke wants it. They keep ignoring us. Keep talking about Carolina. Keep talking about Clemson. Keep talking about Miami. Keep talking about all these teams. Leave us alone.
Yeah, that's true. But it's just funny, man, because Duke football doesn't exist here, and we live right here. I mean, I don't know the last time I saw Duke football, anything on anyone's car, license plate, nothing. I see more App State and ECU here, and obviously State and Carolina as well. But it's crazy to think that without much of a fan base, without much fanfare, that this, like you said, may have just established themselves as the top dog in the state, in two states, in a year where everybody's...
There's an argument to be made that they're better than Clemson.
Well, I mean, they crushed Clemson the first time they played, you know?
And I mean, people are saying, well, Clemson's gotten better. Clemson did this. Clemson. There's still an argument to be made that they're even with how much better Clemson has gotten, Duke is still better. And, Carolina blew it against the fourth best team in Virginia. I don't even know how that happens. Listen, they do this to me every year. And I'm not a Carolina fan at all. I don't even like Carolina football. I have no feelings towards Carolina football whatsoever. But you try to get behind them because...
Well, you do. I don't. But...
Well, yeah. As much as I'm an App State fan and I love my alum, I want the state to do well. I want us as a whole, as a state, to do well. And every year I try to get behind Carolina, and they always start out great, right? Top 15, top 18, and then they move down into, this is the first year I think they cracked the top 10 in a while. And then they move in and they do all this great stuff, and then they crap the bed against Virginia. Virginia couldn't beat JMU, Marshall, or Virginia Tech right now. And they might not be ODU right now.
I don't even think they could beat App State right now.
That's what I'm saying. So, oh, God.
Yeah.
It's frustrating, man. It's frustrating. So, well, I guess we'll just hold on to Duke for right now and see what happens.
Yeah. Hey, the good news is if we want to go to a Duke game, it's pretty easy to get some tickets.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I know.
I might take you up on that.
I know that NC State fans took over the stadium, even with how well Duke's going. I mean, it's hard to fill your stadium when your alumni base is very tiny and not in the area very well. And then,
they probably still don't believe it. They're like, "Are we sure? Is this real?"
Yep. There's probably a lot of State fans who probably thought they were going to walk in there and walk out of there with the W, and it didn't happen. And it wasn't even close to happening either.
Yeah. Yeah, this is we're getting into the time of year where you can't just show up and win anymore.
No. Definitely not.
Talent is starting to even out across the board.
Yes.
NIL is making the playing field real even.
Speaking of talent and across the board, what's your outlook on the Heisman at this point? You've got, the almost obvious pick 2 or 3 weeks ago in Caleb Williams, now with 2 losses and not looking tremendous overall, but probably still kind of the best athlete. If you're going to go to the NFL draft, he's the guy you build a team around. But I mean, I'm hearing that people aren't even got him in his top 3 anymore. So where are you at with that?
Yeah, he lost his Heisman moment in my opinion. You can't lose to Utah, right? And be considered a Heisman Trophy candidate. I will say he's the best NFL prospect in terms of individual talent. And obviously football's a team game, so he didn't lose; they lost.
Right.
But as far as the Heisman race, I mean, I think it's Penix and and Bowers, right? I mean, who else? I mean, those two are really head and shoulders, and their programs are winning. You know, Washington's undefeated, Georgia's undefeated. Brock Bowers is easily the best tight end and maybe the best offensive player outside, non-quarterback in the country.
Yeah, but what does his injury do to that? Because I mean, he hasn't even played. I mean, he didn't play last week, right? And I don't know if he's going to play for another 2-3 weeks.
Now that could be a hindrance because and two, you got to look at if they keep winning and he comes back and is a main contributor. Like, let's say he doesn't play this week, and I mean, smart money says Georgia's probably going to win, right?
Right.
He doesn't play this week, but then he comes back next week and he has another 5-catch, 98-yard, 2-touchdown game. Does he pick up where he left off in the Heisman vote or Heisman race? Again, he's not a quarterback, so the likelihood of him winning is very slim against Penix, who's probably going to play every single game, hopefully barring injury, knocking on wood.
Right.
And likely, I can't think of the rest of their schedule offhand, but likely win out. Right? It looks like Washington will probably win out. I think they've got Utah as the next best opponent.
Maybe so. I'll try and pull that up while you talk.
Yeah,
Although you know what I said before the season, I said that the Pac-12 wouldn't get any team in the playoff yet again, and not because they're not good, because they would beat themselves up, which is happening right now. Right? Almost everybody's got.
But I also think they're not good.
You don't think they are good?
No, outside of Washington, who's good? Oregon's not good. Utah is. I mean, they're okay. I mean, Colorado's not ready yet. Obviously, Arizona State. Those teams aren't ready. Washington State's not. They're not good enough. Oregon is basically Penn State of the West. I mean, they're always good the first 6 games of the season, and then they blow it. So, I mean, realistically, I know you say they beat up on themselves, but so does every other conference. Look at the SEC. You take an SEC team, you take Mississippi State and put them in the Pac-12 outside of Washington, who's going to beat them? Maybe Utah? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think the hard part for me is like at certain points of the season, some of these teams looked like they couldn't lose to anybody. And then now they've come back down, or like Washington State with Cam Ward at quarterback. For a while there, they looked like they couldn't be beat. And then they came back. Now they got 3 losses already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about what Oregon did to Colorado and trying to make a point, make a statement, and now look at them.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, and I get it. The excuse is we beat up on ourselves, but again, every conference does that. Everybody does that. I mean, look at, like I said, Clemson outside of Duke has no losses. Outside of Georgia, nobody in the SEC is undefeated. So we're all beating up on each other because that's how it works. But the difference is can you go outside of your conference and win? And I don't think Oregon is good enough to win in the SEC. I don't think they can. I don't think Oregon stands a chance against Michigan, Ohio State. I don't even think they could beat Penn State, to be quite honest. Put them in, I guess.
Offensively, like challenged though. Like, where's the explosiveness? They got nothing.
No, and they never will because they're not going to get a quarterback that wants to play there.
Well, I mean, I think this Aller kid is good, but like, he's not.
Is he though? Is he?
I heard it described because I'm not going to come up with this off the top of my head, but I heard it described on satellite radio. He's like the old school quarterback. He's not your new school scrambler who's going to run around and be exciting. He's like your old school pocket passer quarterback who just wants to sit back there and deliver the football and occasionally run when he has to type thing. And I mean, I guess from what I've seen, I have to agree with that so far. I mean,
and that won't win.
No, not against teams like Michigan who are stealing signs and everything.
Right. But it'd be just but think about all the good teams. Their quarterbacks are mobile. They can move. They can run.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of Georgia, I mean, even I forget his name, but he can run a little bit. Trevor Lawrence, when he was Clemson. He
Yeah.
need to leave my Cougs alone. Listen, they are who they are, man. And we got to call a spade a spade. We can go all night on this. Sorry, I don't mean to keep you, but the college football landscape, it's even because of what NIL is doing, and I love it. I absolutely adore. I mean, you've never seen Alabama rank. I think they're 12th, maybe better now. You've never seen.
Yeah, it
them
is
rank
better
that.
now. But yeah, I mean, I was on the verge. You know how we do our rankings for college football dogs. I was on the verge of having them out of my top 25 after the first 2 or 3 weeks because I just thought maybe this team isn't just a top 25 team. And it wasn't so much that they kept losing because they had started winning, but they hadn't really played a lot of competition. And other teams I thought were going to just jump ahead. Obviously, that hasn't happened, and they've moved their way back up. But I mean, like you said, the playing field has never been more even, and I think it's going to really stay that way. I don't think we're going to see teams
good. Good.
Yeah.
We need parity.
I think
it's good for college football.
I think it's great, but I think fans have to adjust, right? So, with what we're experiencing App State and other places like Arkansas State, who's been through this long downturn stuff, not necessarily right away, but here within 2 or 3 years, when we fully understand what these NIL deals have done to the college football landscape, you can't expect the turnarounds could possibly be really fast, as we saw with Colorado early in the year. You can flip a whole roster. You can do it, and it can have success. But that still doesn't mean you're going to have a championship pedigree program for 6 years in a row anymore. It's just not going to happen.
Right. It's not going to happen.
I don't think those days are over. If someone does that, they have the best damn coach in the entire country, and his name's probably Nick Saban. But, or the next Nick Saban or the next Bill Belichick or whatever it is. But I think the long sustained, those guys are always the conference champs. I think those days are probably likely over. So if you win 2 or 3 in a row, consider yourselves very, very lucky.
Yeah. Well, and two, what NIL is doing, it's causing teams like Alabama to not stack up 5-star recruits, because here's what's happening now. If I am a backup left tackle, right, at Alabama, but I know I should be starting, but there's another 5-star recruit in front of me, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to Colorado and play with Prime. And I'm going to get on his offensive line where I know I'm going to start, and then I know that there's a void. And I also know that I could get me a local Chevrolet commercial and get me $15,000, $20,000 because I'm not going to get that kind of money at Alabama because no one knows who the hell I am. So you understand what I'm saying? So NIL is changing the landscape, not just for guys like Shedeur who's getting $4 or $5 million, but you also got to think about that low man who's the backup at so-and-so LSU University or whatever, who is good enough to be a starter, but because there's a 5-star in front of him, he's not playing yet. But he can go to Colorado, or he can go to Duke, or he can go to Carolina or somewhere and be a starter and get him a low-budget local commercial for $15,000, $20,000, $50,000 and be happy. You understand what I'm saying? And then get on the field, and next stop is the NFL because I was good enough anyway. I never got a chance to play. So that's another thing that NIL is doing. They're not letting these big schools stack up all these players anymore, because now these players know that Nick Saban isn't the only coach that can get me to the NFL, and there's some money to be made out here in these streets. I got to go get it. So
yeah. And if you go to Utah, you get a car if you're a scholarship player.
You do. You get a car. So
that was insane. I know you're a sports guy overall. I'm not big on Major League Baseball. I'm actually getting into college baseball more. But Artie does have a question. If you're watching any of the baseball, where are you with the pro baseball? Because I got nothing. I'm not even going to lie to you. With how entrenched I am with college football right now, and I'm about to get into college basketball here soon, I don't even know all the teams that are in the World Series or battling for the World Series. So Diamondbacks in 7, sure, I'll take that. I like the Diamondbacks. I like their logo and their name. So sure. I don't even know who they're playing. I really don't.
Yeah, I think I don't get me lying. I think it's is it Atlanta?
No, they're out.
I could be wrong. I don't know. Artie, you tell us. I don't know if it's Atlanta.
I know Atlanta's out because we got, we live in the Atlanta market for baseball since we don't have anybody close. Let me see.
Yeah, I don't watch a lot of baseball, which is unfortunate. And what's crazy, I watch every sport. I just don't watch baseball. Baseball's hard to watch. It's better when you're at the game, but it's tough to watch on TV.
Oh, that we will 100% agree on. Baseball is a sport that I can't really get it. Oh, Rangers, Texas Rangers. So I'm gonna throw that one up there because I'm reading.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because I did see Dak Prescott was excited about Texas beating Houston last week. So I did see that.
So let me.
That's about the only trophy that'll be in Texas because Dallas ain't winning one, and Houston damn sure ain't winning one. Not anytime soon. So
yeah,
Houston Texans, that is.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not winning anything there. I tried to pull up. Yeah, MLB. There we go. I wanted to see what Diamondbacks, Rangers. Okay, so that is the World Series. See, I didn't even know. I thought there was still. I thought there was 4 teams. I thought I was going to have to go see some on the other side. Okay, so the Phillies and Houston were the other 2 teams before we got to this point. Okay. Yeah, I'm pulling for the Diamondbacks over the Rangers, I'd say. And Artie makes an excellent point. I got really entrenched in Sunbelt baseball for the first time ever last year, and it's a lot of fun, especially when it gets to conference tournament time. But yeah, as he said, we have a ton of talent in Sunbelt baseball. It's pretty ridiculous. Southern Miss coming in as probably the top perennial, traditional team, and then Coastal Carolina is one of those newer teams that just wins all the time. So once it comes to that, Sunbelt Syndicate, maybe not so much TJ, but I will still be providing a bunch of coverage on the baseball aspect. Maybe we'll get to a game here, although the localist team for a baseball game is still like 3 hours for both of us. So it's tough unless somebody plays somebody local here to like NC State, Duke, or Carolina, which there's a couple matchups there they did. Yeah. Now it's funny. Baseball or basketball is about to start up. I was reviewing the schedules for everybody. The Sun Belt plays like 2 ACC opponents total for the season, and none of them are in a triangle. It's like Louisville and Georgia Tech. And I'm like, man, I can't go see any Sun Belt team close locally. Yeah. Anyway, just thought that was interesting because I think last year there was like at least 3 or 4 matchups, and most of them were, NC State or Carolina, right here locally. Not going to get so lucky this year. But anyway, we've run extra long today. Maybe because we had
and that's what happens when you start talking about the entire college football landscape. So
that's true. That's true. But thank you to Artie and Troy for following along with the program, and anybody else who was out there who just didn't make it known, come on in and comment. The more the merrier. We'll still be asking for submissions before the show too. If someone doesn't have the time or availability to come on during, submit it beforehand. We've got all kinds of social medias you can send us a message on, or message boards. Sometimes they're floating around there too. So if you've got something to ask, certainly let us know. TJ, where can the people find you and follow you?
Yeah, I am on Facebook, TJ Corman, Instagram, Mr. Corman 12, and also thick thighs and large fries. Get you some.
Get you some. Hey, I think you stole that from somebody.
I don't know.
It's an ad read for Danos. He snuck it in there on us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes, you can follow us as a total team over at collegefootballdogs.com and across social media at College Football Dogs or also Sunbelt Syndicate. Until next week, we will see you guys later.